Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I was halfway out of the dressing room when he said it. I'm Lily, I'm 26, and this is the moment everything tilted. The curtain brushed my shoulder and I heard him clear his throat. I smiled before I even saw him because I thought this was safe. I had no idea that one sentence would punch straight through me. He leaned forward in the chair and dragged his eyes over the dress. No smile, no whistle, just that slow scan that made my skin itch. I turned toward the mirror and tried to catch a decent angle. My hands smoothed the fabric while my stomach climbed into my chest. His silence stretched out and every second felt like a test. So he tapped his knee and made this fake thoughtful face. White, huh, you really want to go with white for the ceremony? The way he stressed that word made the back of my neck burn. I laughed a little because I thought he was teasing the price. I should have known better when my own laugh sounded off. What does that mean? I watched his reflection instead of his face. He shrugged like it was nothing and spread his hands wide. It's just, white is kind of for pure brides. He dragged the word pure out like gum he found under a table. That was the first second I felt more costume than bride. I turned fully toward him and my heel almost slipped. Pure brides, I repeated it because my brain stalled hard. My chest felt hot and my arms suddenly had nowhere to go. I crossed them, then dropped them, then clutched the dress at my hips. He grinned like we were sharing some inside joke at my expense. Come on, babes, you know what I mean, he waved at me. He pointed at the dress, then at me, then back at the dress. Traditionally, white is for girls who are like untouched. His eyebrows did this stupid little bounce I used to find cute. Hearing that look paired with those words made my scalp prickle. I stared at him and my mind flashed through every late night. Every time he asked for details and pretended it was no big deal. Every time he called himself chill while digging for more numbers. Untouched, I repeated it softer and my throat tightened. The word felt less like a concept and more like a weapon. So what? My voice cracked and I forced it steady. You think I shouldn't wear white because I had partners before? He leaned back, laced his fingers behind his head, looked smug. It would be a little funny, right, with your track record. There it was, dropped on the floor between us like trash. I laughed again, this weird sharp sound that did not feel mine. Well, okay, my track record, that's how we talk about me now. He rolled his eyes, already annoyed that I did not play along. Don't start, I'm just joking, you always get so dramatic. He said dramatic like he was tired, like this was my usual performance. Inside my head, I started bargaining with myself on fast forward. Maybe he was nervous and saying dumb things to hide it. Maybe he heard this from some podcast and thought it was edgy. Maybe I was overreacting and ruining a fun day by being sensitive. It's wild how fast you search for reasons not to feel hurt. I'm not being dramatic, I'm in a wedding dress, I spread my arms. This is literally the most vulnerable I've ever looked in front of you. My voice shook and that pissed me off even more than him. He stood and stepped closer like he could smooth this over with proximity. For a second I almost leaned into it just to make the discomfort stop. He brushed my shoulder and smiled at our reflection with practiced charm. Look, you look amazing, obviously like insane level hot. He dragged his hand down my arm and I felt more exposed than adored. It's just tradition, right? White used to mean something, that's all. Every time he said just, it shaved a little respect off my skin. So what color fits someone like me then? My voice came out low. I fixed my eyes on the floor because that felt safer than his face. If he answered wrong, I knew something inside me would crack. He hesitated for half a breath, then smirked like he loved the setup. Maybe not pure white, more like experienced bride chic. I actually felt my face go numb, like everything slid sideways. Experienced bride chic, I repeated it and wanted to disappear. Behind us, the attendant pretended not to listen and failed badly. My heart hammered because suddenly I was not just embarrassed, I was catalogued. That was the moment the room stopped feeling like mine. He noticed my silence and nudged my elbow like we were buddies. Hey, don't get weird, I love that you're not some prude. He winked at me like he was granting a compliment. You were a little wild before me, that's part of your charm. He loved the idea of my past when it made him feel like a hero. And what exactly do you mean by wild? I already knew the answer. I asked anyway because I wanted to hear him say it out loud. My hands twisted in. The fabric and I hated that he saw it. He shrugged again, casual, too casual for the ground shifting under me. You know, you said yourself you've been around, you're not exactly untouched. I felt the words hit one by one like tiny slaps across my face. Been around, not untouched, said it myself, all turned into evidence. Are you calling me used? My voice sharpened before I could soften it. His jaw tightened for the first time, like now I was the problem. He lowered his voice and stepped closer as if privacy made it better. I'm just being honest, most guys dream of a pure bride. He kept his tone low like this was helpful advice, not a blow. They don't admit it, but they want to feel like they're the first. He looked almost proud of himself, like he was sharing secret male wisdom. Hearing that from the man marrying me made my vision swim. So you want a pure bride? I held his gaze and waited. If he said yes, I did not know what I would do in that dress. Part of me already knew I would probably still try to explain myself. That's the worst part to admit now, but it's true. Fear of losing him sat heavier than my own self-respect. He hesitated long enough for my stomach to drop to the floor. Then he smiled thin and tried to soften it with a half-joke. I want you obviously, but you get what I mean. He bumped my shoulder like this could all be smoothed away. You're lucky I'm not one of those guys who demand a virgin. There it was, the gratitude trap, neatly wrapped and handed over. Lucky? I was supposed to feel lucky he overlooked my so-called flaws. I stared at him and felt this quiet, slow anger wake up. The kind that does not scream, just takes notes and waits. I did not know it yet, but that part of me would save me. The attendant stepped in and asked if we wanted to try a veil. I could hear the strain in her voice and it mirrored mine. I nodded because my body moved on autopilot when my brain froze. He answered for us and said we might look at other tones too. Other tones, like my dignity now had a color chart. I stood on that little platform and watched myself in the mirror. I looked like a bride and also like someone auditioning for the role. My face tried to smile and kept failing halfway through. Behind me he scrolled on his phone, then looked up and smirked. He saw a joke. I saw a man who thought he was trading up. Maybe ivory would be more accurate. He tossed the word out lightly. The attendant's eyes flicked to mine, then away like she touched a stove. He chuckled under his breath, amused with his own cleverness. My hands shook so badly I had to grab the edge of the platform. I realized he was not joking, he was grading me. I cleared my throat and forced my voice out through the tightness. If you think I don't deserve white, we have a serious problem. I kept my eyes on the reflection because his face felt dangerous. My heart pounded loud enough that it drowned the soft storm music. This was the first time I said the problem out loud. He sighed, big and theatrical, like I dragged him into drama. Why do you always twist my words? I literally said I want you. He gestured up and down at me like he was presenting a car. You're sexy, you're fun, obviously I want to marry you. The way he listed those things made me feel more product than partner. I knew in that moment that something fundamental was off. I could not have described it then in a clean sentence. I just knew his love felt conditional and I was failing some test. I smiled anyway because I was scared to look the truth in the face. That smile is the one I hate most when I replay this. Can we just focus on the dress right now? I forced my voice light. I heard how fake it sounded and saw the attendant notice. He relaxed instantly, like he had won a small argument by default. Yeah, sure, fine, we'll figure something that fits your vibe. He used that word vibe like my history was now an aesthetic choice. I turned back to the mirror and tried to see what he saw. Was I really standing there pretending? I did not understand the insult. My chest rose and fell faster and my eyes stung. I blinked hard because I refused to cry in that shop. I did not want to give him that kind of power over this moment. If I had walked out right then, the story would end here. Just one gross comment, one ugly reveal, one broken engagement. Instead, I swallowed it down and told myself he was nervous. I told myself every couple has weird conversations before a wedding. I had no idea this was only the first crack in the floor. The cabinet door slammed hard enough to rattle my nerves. He dropped the shopping bag on the counter and blew out a breath. So are you going to stay mad all night over color? His keys scraped the counter and my teeth clenched at the sound. It felt less like a question and more like a warning. I set my phone down so I would not hurl it. I'm not mad about a color. Am upset about what it meant. He opened the fridge, stared inside like it owed him patience. You are twisting everything again, it was a joke, that's it. Every time he said again my chest tightened a little more. You told me white is for innocent brides, remember that. I leaned on the counter because my legs felt shaky and stupid. You called me wild like it was a bad thing suddenly. He laughed short and sharp like he could cut the moment in half. You always brag about your experience, now suddenly it's off limits. That line hit harder than anything from the dress shop. Brag really, that's how you hear me when I talk about my past. He shut the fridge with his hip and faced me like a referee. You told me body count jokes first, you opened that door. He smiled like he had caught me in a trap I built. I joked because I trusted you, there is a difference. I felt my voice climb and forced it down with effort. I did not hand you ammo so you could shame me later. He rolled his eyes so hard it made me feel tiny. This is what I mean, you go nuclear over everything I say. There it was, the shift from what he did to what I am. Not hurt, not angry, just go nuclear, somehow my whole personality. You called me basically, second hand in front of a stranger, remember. My throat burned yet I still talked because silence felt like drowning. He grabbed his water bottle and took a long, slow drink instead. You always hear the worst version, that is the real issue. He pointed at me with the bottle like he was drawing a line. I make one dark joke, you turn it into a character trial. He shook his head like he pitied me more than anything. That kind of overreaction scares guys off, you know that right. The phrase scares guys off hit something ugly and deep. So now I should be grateful you put up with me. My laugh came out tight and shaky and not fun at all. Is that what your mom will tell me too, that I'm lucky? He stiffened slightly at the mention of her name, just for a beat. We're literally going over there for dinner, do not start drama. He jammed his phone into his pocket and checked his watch again. My mom has been working on this all day, please be chill. That word chill landed like a slap after everything at the boutique. Apparently my main job was to decorate dinner, not have feelings. The drive there felt short and endless at the same time. He kept the radio just loud enough to block small talk. My fingers picked at a loose thread on my jeans nonstop. Every mile I argued silently with myself about breaking the engagement. Every mile I chickened out and planned how to sound normal instead. Right before we walked up to the door, he grabbed my wrist. Listen, if you bring up earlier, at least mention the joke part. His grip tightened just enough to make my pulse hammer faster. I don't need her thinking I'm some monster over nothing. The word monster stuck with me more than the word nothing. The door opened before I could answer, and his mom pulled him in. He instantly softened, voice lighter, posture loose like a switch flipped. There they are, my favorite couple, she sang as she hugged us. I stepped back and hid my face in another smile that hurt. I already knew I would lie if she asked how I felt. She did not need to ask, she just looked at me once. Her eyes flicked over my expression like she was scanning a bill. You look tense, did he drive too fast again? She laughed lightly. He snorted and dropped onto the couch with practiced familiarity. I stayed standing a second too long, which gave me away. What happened? Her voice dipped lower as she guided me toward a chair. He glanced over from the couch, quick and cautious, then away. Nothing huge, she's still salty about the dress today. He stretched his arms and cracked his knuckles in this casual way. So now white fabric means I hate her, apparently. My head snapped toward him because that version sounded insane. That is not what I said, you know that very well. I felt my pulse in my ears and tried to breathe evenly. His mom's gaze bounced between us like she was watching a show. Okay, slow down, what exactly was the issue? He jumped in first, smooth, confident, like he practiced in the car. I made a dumb joke about classic meanings of wedding colors, that's all. He chuckled like even repeating it bored him now. I mentioned how old-fashioned people used to link white with innocence. Then he lifted both hands, palms up like look how silly. I stared at him because that edit changed everything crucial. Except you did not say people, you aimed it straight at me. My nails dug into my palm and I forced myself to stop. You contrasted me with that old standard and called me wild. He scoffed quietly and shook his head like I was rewriting history. His mom turned toward me with patient concern that felt theatrical. Honey, you know men joke about that stuff sometimes, right? She gave a soft little shrug like it was weather, not insult. They hear certain numbers and get in their heads a little. That was the first time someone else mentioned my past like a tally. So I'm supposed to just laugh while he rates my worth. The words came out harsher than I intended and I didn't care. I was standing there about to choose the dress I marry in. My voice rose and I saw her eyes narrow a fraction. Being called anything less than worthy there felt humiliating. She tilted her head and exhaled like she had been here before. Sweetheart, you told him your history, no one forced you to share. Her tone stayed gentle, but the content landed sharp and precise. Once you put that out there, a man can't unhear it, understand. I suddenly felt like a teenager getting lectured for bad choices. He shifted behind her and gave me a tiny smug smile. That look said, see, she gets it, why don't you? I wanted to throw something and also crawl under the floor. You're acting like I tricked him, I was honest from the start. Honesty somehow turned into the thing being held against me. His mom leaned forward and tapped her fingers together. A man wants to feel special, like he is not just next in line. She watched my reaction carefully, almost curious about the damage. When a woman has lived a little more, it can sting his ego. Hearing lived a little more used that way hurt in a new way. So what, women like me should keep quiet and pretend? My throat tightened and the words rasped out anyway. Lie, shrink ourselves, erase years just so he feels important. My eyes burned, yet I blinked hard because I refused to cry. He shifted uncomfortably now, like I was making everything awkward. His mom gave a small, sad smile that did not reach her eyes. No one said lie, but you could be softer about it. She reached over and touched my knee like we were friends. Men struggle when they feel like they are sharing a favorite thing. The phrase favorite thing dropped between us like something rotten. I pulled my leg back and sat up straighter on instinct. Did you just compare me to something passed around? My voice went quiet, which somehow made it sharper. Her expression flickered with annoyance for the first time all night. Don't twist my words, I meant that you are highly desired. The spin made my stomach churn even more than the comment. So I am supposed to take that as a compliment now. I glanced at him, hoping for any sign that he agreed with me. He stared at the floor, jaw tight, hands pressed together hard. It was clear he wanted this over, not fixed. His mom followed my gaze and let out a soft sigh. He cares about you, or he would not be sitting here under fire. She gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder like he was the victim. You two just come from different places when it comes to history. That pause around history felt longer than the whole drive over. I swallowed and tried one last time to draw a clear line. I do not regret my life before him, and I never will. My voice trembled, yet I meant every word that left it. I will not spend our marriage apologizing for existing before we met. The room cooled instantly, like I had just broken a hidden rule. Her face hardened in a way I had never seen before. Well, then you also cannot be surprised if he feels a little unsettled. She folded her arms and looked at me like a puzzle with missing pieces. Men are wired to want something that feels just theirs, that is natural. There it was, the idea that my past made me less claimable. He finally spoke, voice low, trying to sound reasonable and tired. I just wanted to feel like our wedding day was about us, not them. He did not need to clarify who them was, we all knew. If you had been with fewer people, this would not even matter. He flinched as soon as it slipped out, but it was already hanging there. I stared at him and felt something inside me go still. Not angry, not loud, just this cold, steady understanding settling in. No number would ever feel low enough for that mindset. I realized that even if I changed nothing else about myself, he would always picture ghosts beside me when I walked toward him. His mom shook her head and gave me one last warning smile. Try not to make this a mountain, dear, men talk, they brag. She stood and smoothed her shirt like the conversation was done. Focus on the future, not on words spoken in bad humor. Apparently respect was a detail I was supposed to ignore. On the way out, he grabbed my hand and squeezed a little harder. Why did you push it that far? You know how she is. I pulled my fingers loose and kept them in my pockets. She called me basically shared property and you just sat there. The silence after that sentence felt heavier than any reply. He unlocked the car and leaned against the door for a moment. You always escalate, that is the problem, it never stops at one comment. He looked at me like I was fire he needed to contain. My mom thinks you like conflict, that you look for reasons to fight. Hearing that almost hurt more than the original joke about the dress. I climbed into the seat and buckled in with shaking hands. The urge to scream, to run, to rip off the ring all collided. Instead, I looked straight ahead and asked the one quiet question. Do you actually believe there is something wrong with me for not being untouched? He did not answer right away, and that pause told me enough. I unlocked his tablet with my thumb before I could talk myself out of it. The screen blinked on fast, like it had been waiting for me. His shower ran down the hall and counted out my seconds. My pulse thudded in my ears while my hand hovered over the apps. I already knew this was a line, I still crossed it. I told myself I only wanted to prove my brain wrong. If nothing was there, I could apologize in my head and move on. If something was there, at least I would stop feeling crazy. That was the deal I made with myself in those few seconds. It sounded reasonable until I actually opened his messages. The first chat list popped up with little icons and names. Family, coworkers, random group threads I never cared about before. One title grabbed me hard enough that my thumb froze. Locker Room Legends sat almost at the top with fresh notifications. I tapped it and felt my stomach lurch like I had jumped. The newest message was from one of his groomsmen, just laughing emojis. Above that, another guy dropped a link for some bachelor weekend rental. I scrolled up a few lines, trying to breathe slowly through the panic. Then my own name hit my eyes in plain text, no cushion. Every thought I had about privacy vanished under 3 short sentences. Bro, I still can't believe you're cuffing Lily after all that. You serious about that wedding or just playing endgame on hard mode? Everybody knows she's been out there, that's wife material now. My hand jerked and almost closed the tablet on instinct. Instead, I forced myself to keep reading because now I had to know. His reply sat right under those messages in a blue bubble. Now it's good, I got her under control now. She was a little community at first, but I locked it down. I'm not trying to turn a saint into a freak, I did the reverse. The words swam for a second before they slammed into focus. Community, under control, reverse, all about me, none from me. I swallowed air that didn't seem to reach my lungs anymore. Before I could recover, another message popped up from his friend. At least you're honest, man, most dudes would never wife that. You're bold for putting a ring on something that public. Something that public, that was how they discussed my life. Not my choices, not my growth, just something. My thumb shook as I scrolled higher, chasing the start of this thread. Some part of me kept hoping I would find him defending me. I only found more evidence that he thought I was a joke. One older message from him sat near the top of the chat. It was from weeks before the dress trip, maybe months. Lily's got a past, yeah, but I'm not trying to marry a nun. She's fun, experienced, you know what I mean. I'll just make sure she remembers she's off the market now. I hated how familiar those words felt even outside his mouth. He had used that same tone on me in smaller pieces before. Reading it here to his friends made it feel harsher and more real. Suddenly, every flirty comment about my skills snapped into place. It wasn't appreciation, it was a story he could brag about. I scrolled back down to the newer parts of the conversation. The thread had turned into a full debate over my worth. Once a girl racks up enough mileage, you can't really claim her. Wedding pics gonna look wild knowing half the guest list hit first. That dress better not be white, bro, that would be false advertising. That line knocked the breath out of me more than the others. I could see him repeating that exact joke in the shop with me. At least here he had an audience that cheered instead of staring. I waited for a single pushback from anyone in that chat. All I saw were laughing reactions and one gross little crown emoji. The worst part came in the next little blue bubble from him. Now relax, I already told her white is for pure brides. Made it clear she's more ran through than that. Gonna put her in champagne or something, keep it accurate. There it was, the phrase I can't unsee now, sitting in pixels. Ran through, not teased, not hinted, stated like a fact. He had not just thrown it at me once while trying to shock me. He had taken it back to his friends and worn it like a medal. Suddenly, that moment in the boutique felt less like a slip. It felt like I had accidentally walked into someone else's script. I clamped my teeth together so hard my jaw ached. My fight. Fingers started tingling, like my own body wanted to drop everything. The shower water roared down the hall, still covering my trespassing. I knew I didn't have long, but I couldn't look away. I needed to see if he ever fought for me at all. I scrolled further up, past jokes about my phase before him. They traded rumors and half-truths like trading cards on a table. Some of it wasn't even accurate, and still he never corrected them. He just added these smug little responses that made him look superior. Every line chipped at the picture I had of our relationship. One friend asked directly if he trusted me not to cheat later. His answer sat there, simple, honest in the worst way. I keep an eye on her, she knows I don't play like that. She already did her thing, now she gets to be a wife. I told her I don't do open returns, I'll walk if she slips. I almost dropped the tablet right there onto the couch. Open returns, like I was an item he could toss away. Like he was doing me a favor by tolerating my existence. I stared at those words and felt something sour climb my throat. I could not decide if I wanted to scream or throw up first. I snapped out of it when the water shut off in the bathroom. Sudden silence flooded the hallway in a way that terrified me. I took 3 fast screenshots, hands clumsy, heart slamming. Then I grabbed my own phone and sent them to myself quick. My whole body jolted at every little notification sound. Once the images landed, I hit delete on the tablet's recent items. My breathing grew shallow and fast, like I was hiding from a burglar. I flipped the cover closed and dropped it exactly where it had been. Then I picked up a random magazine and pretended to read. My hand still quivered so much the pages rattled. He walked out a minute later, hair damp, towel around his neck. "Hey, you seen my tablet? I need to check something before bed." I swallowed and lifted my head slowly, hoping my face behaved. "It's right there," I moved it a little so it wouldn't fall. My voice sounded almost normal, which scared me in a different way. He grabbed it and woke the screen with his own thumb. For one stretched out second, I watched his eyes scan the display. I braced for impact, expecting him to notice something off immediately. Instead, he just tapped another app and flopped onto the opposite cushion. "You good, or you still stewing about earlier?" I opened my mouth, then closed it, then forced a shrug. "I'm tired, my brain's just buzzing." I rubbed my temples hard. "I might crash early and try to reset for tomorrow." He grunted some half-reply and kept fiddling with his notifications. He did not notice how carefully I was watching his hands. That night I lay in the dark with my own phone glowing. I opened the screenshots one by one like pulling bandages. Every insult burned worse now that I processed them slowly. Alone in my bed, the words landed deeper than they had before. Without his voice to soften them, there was nothing to mishear. I kept zooming in on his name above each message bubble. My brain tried to argue that jokes look louder in writing. That guys show off for each other, that I shouldn't take it personally. Then that one specific line about me being ran through popped up again. Any excuse I tried to build collapsed under that. What broke me more than the words was the pattern. He wasn't just insecure and fumbling, he was proud of this narrative. Proud enough to share it repeatedly with the people closest to him. Proud enough to joke about adjusting my wedding outfit to match it. This wasn't a one-time slip, it was how he framed me. I realized something ugly about myself while staring at that chat. If I had never opened his messages, I might have married him anyway. I would have kept calling it sensitivity every time my stomach twisted. I would have walked down an aisle toward a man who saw me as damaged. That thought scared me almost as much as the screenshots themselves. Lying there in the dark, I started doing quiet math in my head. Not about past partners, about disrespect and how often it showed up. Boutique comments, car conversations, little digs he brushed off as humor. Each one slotted next to these messages into a clearer picture. By the time I finally closed my eyes, we felt less like a team. I wish I could tell you I confronted him the next morning. That I held up my phone, waved the evidence, and walked out. Instead, I saved the images in a hidden folder and locked my screen. I told myself I needed a plan, not just raw emotion and yelling. Deep down, though, I think I wanted to see how far he'd go. "I'll drop the white dress, is that enough for you?" That was the first thing out of my mouth that morning. No hello, no coffee talk, just that sentence across the table. He looked up from his phone and blinked like I'd surprised him. I already hated that I was offering something to fix his insult. "You're serious?" He pushed the chair back a little, watching my face. If I pick a different shade, can we stop arguing about purity? My voice came out flat and calmer than I felt inside. I don't want to keep fighting you over a wedding outfit. I left out the part where I had screenshots on my phone. His mouth curled into this slow, satisfied smile that turned my stomach. That's actually really mature of you, babe. I appreciate it. He reached across the table and touched my hand lightly. So you'll find something more, I don't know, fitting for your vibe. The word vibe again, but now it sounded like judgment dressed as taste. I was thinking champagne or something close to that range. I pulled my hand back and folded my arms around myself. That way you don't have to worry about symbolism or whatever. I heard how defeated I sounded and it almost made me flinch. He leaned back and nodded like we were closing a business deal. That could actually look amazing on you, more honest, you know. He said honest like we were fixing a moral issue, not a color. People talk, they remember stories, no need to pretend otherwise. My jaw tightened so hard my teeth hurt and I forced a breath. It hit me that this was not about tradition, it was about punishment. So we're good then, you can drop the jokes now. I tried to keep my voice steady while watching his expression. If I change the dress, this whole pure thing dies here. He hesitated just long enough for doubt to creep up my spine. We're closer to good, there's still other stuff we should tweak. That word other made my stomach sink, because of course there was more. What else do you need to tweak exactly? We already chose everything. He scratched his jaw slowly, eyes sliding away like he was thinking hard. I was looking at your bridesmaids options again, and some things bug me. Instantly, I pictured my friends in their dresses and felt a chill. What about them? I asked, even though I had a guess. He pulled his phone closer and opened the shared wedding folder. You know those tight dresses your friends picked, those feel off now. He zoomed in on one photo of my friend laughing in her dress. The cut is kind of thirsty for a ceremony, don't you think? I stared at the screen and felt heat crawl up my neck. You approved that weeks ago, now it suddenly bothers you. He shrugged, casual, like this was just normal planning talk. I was trying to be chill before, but the more I think. It's weird when half the bridal party looks like they're at a club. You mean my friends look like their history is showing too? The words slipped out before I could soften them for peace. He winced and then grinned, like I'd accidentally landed on his point. I'm just saying, guess no stuff, you don't want that energy standing beside you. Energy, history, my mind filled in what he would not say out loud. So what do you want from them, baggy dresses and blank faces? I leaned forward, heart beating faster, fingers curled into fists. They bought their outfits, they're excited, they feel good in them. He watched me carefully, then picked each word like a safe step. I want them in something more modest, more respectful, that's all. His idea of respectful suddenly sounded like shrink yourself until he relaxes. You can't control what my friends wear to my wedding. I heard myself say it and felt a tiny flash of pride. Then I remembered his group chat talking about my friends too. That pride flickered because now I realized how they probably discussed us. I'm not trying to control them, I'm protecting us. He spread his hands like the reasonable one in the conversation. If they show up in those dresses, guys will be distracted as hell. He looked straight at me, eyes cold, voice quiet. They already know too much about your past, you want them staring too. That line knocked something loose that I had been holding. You're not worried about distraction, you're worried about reminders. My voice dropped, my chest felt tight, but I kept going. You don't want to stand up there with women who know me fully. Because they knew I wasn't broken, just human, and that threatened his story. He stared at me for a second, then rolled his shoulders. Why are you making this deep? I just want a classy ceremony. He clicked his tongue and shook his head like I was exhausting. Tell them we changed the vibe, they can handle sleeves and longer hems. Hearing him talk about my friends like interchangeable mannequins twisted my stomach. I'm not dictating new rules to people who backed me for years. I pushed my chair back, needing distance before I said something brutal. They showed up for me before there was a ring, remember that. He leaned forward this time, eyes sharp, voice low and pointed. And I'm the one standing beside you forever, or does that not matter? That threat sat between us, disguised as a question heavy and sea. Lear, you keep tossing forever around like a prize I have to earn. I folded my arms tighter and dug my nails into my skin. Every time I push back, you remind me you can walk away. Funny how the guy who bragged in chats now played the victim. He exhaled hard and rubbed his face with both hands. Look fine, keep the dresses, I'll live, it's your circus. The way he said your circus made my chest sting. But then at least meet me halfway on your bachelorette thing. My stomach dropped again because I hadn't even mentioned those plans. What about my bachelorette? I kept my voice careful and slow. His gaze flicked to my phone on the table like it offended him. I don't want you out at some club with dudes grinding on you. He spat the last part like it tasted bad in his mouth. Especially not when people already know you used to live like that. I almost laughed because that used to had never felt more off. You think I'm planning some stranger grind fest out of nowhere? I shook my head and felt an exhausted smile hit my lips. It's just a weekend with my friends, no random guys invited. And I knew that because I read the group chat they made for it. He snorted and looked away, eyes on the wall, jaw tight. Your friends always attract attention, that's just reality, you know it. He pointed at me like he was stating obvious math. Add alcohol, loud music, your track record, tell me I should relax. There it was again, my life boiled into pure risk in his brain. My track record or your jealousy, the words came out before I hesitated. His head snapped back toward me and his eyes narrowed. You're seriously throwing that term at me after everything I ignore. I almost asked him what exactly he was ignoring but swallowed it. I wasn't ready to reveal that I had read his unfiltered thoughts. He pushed back from the table and stood, pacing a short line. Here's the deal, if you want that trip, there are conditions. He counted them out on his fingers like he was doing me a favor. No clubs, no random guys, no posting drunk stuff online at all. Keep it low-key or don't go, those are the options. It hit me then how much he liked setting rules around my body. Clothes, trips, photos, all wrapped in concern and image talk. You keep calling these boundaries, but they only ever go one direction. He paused, then frowned like he found that accusation unfair. I don't sleep around, I don't party, you don't need rules for me. I looked at him and saw the logic trap closing around me. Anything I did meant more danger, more temptation, more possible shame. He posed as the steady one, the noble one, while holding chains. Do you hear yourself? You talk like I'm a problem to manage. My heart hammered, but my voice stayed steady, which scared him. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, then forced a laugh. You're making it sound ugly on purpose, it's not that serious. He drummed his fingers on the back of the chair, thinking. I just want a loyal wife, not the version those guys remember. That line confirmed what I already knew from the screenshots. I'm already loyal, your issue is that I was alive before you. I stood too because sitting started to feel like surrender. I'm choosing you day after day and it's still not enough. His gaze hardened, losing whatever softness had been there earlier. Maybe it would feel like enough if you treated this like a gift. That sentence lodged in my chest like a shard. A gift, you being willing to marry someone with my past. My laugh came out sharp and humorless and made him flinch. You actually think you're doing charity work by being here? He didn't answer, and honestly, he didn't need to. We stared at each other across the little gap between us. I watched his jaw clench, his eyes flicker, his shoulders square. He watched me with this mix of irritation and calculation. We both knew we were thinking the same quiet thing. If this is us now, what will we look like 10 years in? He broke first, not with an apology but with another adjustment. Look, let's not blow up the whole thing over details. He stepped closer and reached for my waist like contact solved everything. Change the dress, tone down the bachelorette, I'll drop the jokes. It sounded like peace, but the price tag on it felt huge. I let his hands rest there and tried to imagine saying yes. Yes to a wedding where I already felt graded and controlled. Yes to a marriage where my history hung over every decision. For a second, I nearly convinced myself to agree and move on. That second is the one that scares me most now. Instead, I took his hands off my waist and stepped back slowly. That's not balance, that's me shrinking while you keep your comfort. He froze, eyes searching my face for some familiar softness. You don't want a partner, you want a project that looks redeemed. His jaw worked like he was biting down on every curse word. I am not having this fight every day till the wedding. He grabbed his keys and wallet in one sudden motion. I need air, clear your head and think about what you're risking. The door shut behind him, leaving the house way too quiet. I stood there staring at the spot he'd been, already planning my next move. My phone buzzed 3 times in a row before I grabbed it. Unknown number first, then a short text from my best friend. Answer right now, I don't care what you're doing. My pulse kicked up because she never used that tone with me. I already knew this wasn't about centerpieces or playlists. I hit call and pressed the phone tight to my ear. She picked up on the first half ring, breathing uneven. Tell me you are not sitting next to him right now. No, he went out, I said, and my mouth felt dry. Good, because you're about to see some disgusting things. A new message came through while we were still connected. Check your texts, don't hang up, I want you on the line. I opened the thread and saw the first screenshot appear. The top of it showed his name and a timestamp. Under that, I saw my own friend's contact picture. What am I looking at? I asked, though I already felt weird. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted, like I was younger. She sucked in a breath, then forced the words out carefully. He's been messaging me drunk for the last hour straight. I grabbed the messages before blocking him everywhere. I zoomed in on the first screenshot and started reading. Bachelorette for you, bachelor for me, we could celebrate together. You always flirted with me anyway, might as well try it once. Another line lower down made my throat close for a second. I know you wondered how I am in bed, don't lie. The room went quiet around me except for her breathing. He sent that to you, I asked, needing to hear it aloud. I didn't answer until he kept spamming, then I snapped. She sounded furious and shaken at the same time, which scared me. Keep going, you haven't even hit the worst part yet. I swiped to the next image with shaking fingers. There he was again, words slanting drunk across the screen. She doesn't need to know, she had plenty of fun before me. One more body on the list won't change her reputation anyway. My vision blurred for a second and I had to blink hard. I could hear my own heartbeat while I stared at that. Did he seriously type that exact sentence to you? My voice came out low and rough, like it hurt to talk. Yes, she answered, then I heard something slam on her side. I told him he was disgusting and to stop using you like that. Another screenshot landed, and this one made my skin crawl. It was a photo from the early days of us, one I recognized. He had circled my face and added a little crown emoji. She thinks I don't get attention, she has no idea. I hooked up with someone else that first month and she never noticed. My hand actually slipped off the phone, that is how hard it hit. I scrambled, grabbed it from my lap, pressed it back to my ear. You saw that part, she asked, voice suddenly soft and careful. I stared at the line about the first month until it doubled. Are you telling me he cheated right at the start? I didn't even know until tonight, one of his buddies bragged. She sounded tired now, like she'd been arguing for a while. They're all drunk, they think this is hilarious, like a story. He admitted it in the chat and then repeated it directly to me. It rolled off his tongue like it was a funny memory. I opened the last screenshot she sent without breathing. This one wasn't to her, it was from a group conversation. Different names at the top, same arrogant tone in his messages. Of course I stepped out, I had to test the market first. No way I was going to bet on a girl with her past without sampling options. My stomach turned so hard I had to lean forward. This is about me, I said just to anchor myself. He cheated on me because he thought my history gave him a pass. I could hear her swallow on the other end before answering. He basically said you couldn't talk if you ever found out. I stood up too fast and nearly knocked the chair backwards. The screenshots glared up at me from my hand, brutal and clear. He calls me ruined, then uses that as a reason to betray me. My voice shook, anger and humiliation mixing into something sharp. I spent weeks defending him to myself while he laughed with them. She stayed quiet for a moment, letting me breathe through it. When she spoke again, her tone changed completely, steady and firm. I need you to hear this because I'm not repeating it later. If you marry him after this, I don't come to that wedding. That's how bad this is from where I'm standing. That cut in a different place than his messages did. You'd really skip it, I asked, more shocked than offended. I thought you'd drag me out there even if I hesitated. She let out a rough little laugh, no humor in it at all. I drag you away from danger, not toward it, learn the difference. I sank back down, but my brain was still racing. Does he know you grabbed all of this? I finally asked. Oh yeah, I warned him I was sending it to you. He told me you blow up and then forgive him like always. That comment is actually what pushed me over the edge. I felt something icy settle over the panic, sharp and clear. Like a switch flipped from wounded to done in 1 second. He really thinks I'm that predictable, I said almost calmly. In his mind, I'm just this grateful mess that never leaves. Saying it out loud made me hear how wrong that sounded. We stayed on the line, both listening to each other breathe. Where is he now? She asked, voice low and cautious. With some guys, pretending they're planning his last free weekend. I stared at the engagement ring on my finger and felt queasy. Funny how he loves that phrase when he never planned to be honest. She sighed long and heavy, then shifted to practical mode. What do you want to do with all this right this second? The question hung there because I honestly hadn't decided yet. Part of me wanted to drive to wherever he was and confront him. Another part wanted to sit perfectly still and watch his world collapse later. I'm not pulling a stunt while he's drunk, I said finally. That gives him too many excuses and easy outs afterward. I wiped my face with my free hand and found it damp. I want him stone cold sober when I show him this. I want him to remember every word that comes out of his mouth. There was a pause, then I heard approval in her exhale. That's smart, and I'm here whenever you decide the timing. She cleared her throat, then added something that hurt and helped. I never liked how he talked about your past, but this is worse. This is straight contempt wrapped up as a relationship. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long stretch. I reopened the screenshots one by one just like before. Except now the cheating line glowed brighter than everything else. I thought back to the night he told me he valued loyalty more than anything. All I could see now was projection stacked on top of lies. That was the moment my fear shifted into something different. I stopped worrying about losing him and started worrying about losing myself. If I stayed, I would learn to swallow things like this daily. I would start twisting words in my own head to make them softer. I could feel that future trying to pull me in like quicksand. My phone buzzed again, this time with his name on the screen. A short message popped up, casual, cheerful, like nothing was wrong. Night babe, crazy night, can't wait to marry you. I stared at it and felt a laugh bubble up, sharp and bitter. He had no idea I was already planning his last comfortable morning. I unzipped the dress bag and didn't pull the dress out. The fabric rustled and stayed hidden while I stared at it. My ring felt heavy on my finger, so I slid it off. I set it on the dresser like it might burn through the wood. For the first time in weeks, my hands were steady. My phone lit up with wedding notifications I ignored. Vendors, reminders, excited messages from guests already driving in. On top of all that sat his text from the night before. Can't wait to make you my wife tomorrow, with a heart. I opened it, stared at it, and finally hit delete. I pulled on jeans and a plain top, then my sneakers. Every move felt calm and very out of character for me. I grabbed my phone, car keys, and nothing else from the room. The dress stayed in the bag, hanging like a question mark. I already knew the answer, I just hadn't said it out loud yet. On the way out, I snapped a quick photo of the bag. I didn't know why, it just felt important to remember. Maybe because that empty choice would matter more than any fitting. My lock clicked behind me, louder than usual, sharp in the hallway. It sounded weirdly like closing a chapter. In the car, I opened the group chat with my bridal party. Emergency, meet me in the side room an hour before ceremony. No details here, just trust me please, I added after a beat. 3 bubbles popped up almost instantly, one after another. Got you, on my way, whatever it is, I'm with you. I drove to the venue on autopilot, muscle memory steering. By some miracle, I didn't cry on the way there. I just replayed his messages and my friend's screenshots in my head. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, the anger settled again. This wasn't a meltdown anymore, it was an exit. Inside, the coordinator rushed over with a bright, rehearsed smile. There you are, we're right on schedule, hair and makeup ready. I held up a hand before she could drag me anywhere. There won't be a ceremony, I said, and my own words surprised me. I still need a room though for a conversation. What? Her mouth opened, then closed, then she nodded once quick. Okay, do you want privacy or a small group? Small group, I answered, already planning who would be inside. Just wedding party and his parents, and I need 10 minutes. Something in my tone must have convinced her this was serious. She led me to the side room we'd picked for photos. My bridesmaids were already there, half ready, half confused. One of them stopped mid-sentence when she took in my clothes. "Where's the dress?" she asked, eyes wide, voice almost whispering. "Still hanging at home," I said, and that was the whole answer. My best friend stood up so fast her chair scraped. "You're really doing this today?" Her voice shook just a little. I nodded and pulled my phone from my pocket like a weapon. I thought about waiting, but I want everyone in the same place. I'm not tearing my life down one person at a time. They glanced at each other, then back at me, then at the phone. "You're sure?" another bridesmaid asked, searching my face for doubt. "No room for second thoughts, I already lived those," I told her. "Today I just say it in front of everyone he lied to." My friend stepped closer and squeezed my shoulder hard. "Do you want us in the room when you tell him?" I nodded before she even finished the question. "I want witnesses," I answered and felt a chill at my own word. "If I falter, I need you to remember for me later." Because I knew I'd probably try to minimize this again in my head. There was a knock, then the coordinator peeked around the doorway. "He's here and his parents just arrived," she said quietly. Her eyes flicked over our outfits and the tension in the air. "Are you ready for them, or do you need more time?" "Bring them in," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. He walked in first, already in his suit, tie slightly crooked. His mom followed, looking important and focused like a general. They both froze when they saw my jeans and unstyled hair. "What are you wearing?" he asked, confusion cutting through the room. "That's not funny, we don't have time for jokes right now." "This isn't a joke," I answered, and my voice didn't shake. I held up my phone between us, screen still dark. "There isn't going to be a wedding today, not with you." Silence dropped over the room, heavy enough that I heard breathing. He blinked once, then twice, like the words weren't registering. His mom stepped forward quickly, heels clicking, expression already annoyed. "Is this about the dress color again, because we went over that?" I almost laughed because she truly thought it was still that small. "No," I said, "this is about the kind of man he is. And about the way he talks about me when I'm not there." His jaw tightened as he looked from me to the bridesmaids. "What exactly are you accusing me of, right before our ceremony?" I unlocked my phone and opened the folder I'd hidden. The screenshots stared back up at me, all their ugly lines. "The things you wrote to your friends about my past," I started. His face drained of color in 1 second when he saw the layout. He knew those bubbles, that app, that group name. "You went through my messages," he snapped, stepping closer by instinct. "You violated my privacy and now you want to call me out." That was his first move, not denial, not apology, just outrage. I clicked into one image and turned the phone so everyone saw. She was shared before, but I locked it down, I read. I kept my gaze on his parents while I spoke. I already told her the white dress doesn't fit her story. My hands didn't tremble, but I saw his mother's start to. He made a grab for the phone and my friend intercepted him. "Touch her and I swear I forward this to every guest," she said. Her voice cut through the air, steady and ready. He backed off a step, eyes darting around the room. "You're twisting context, that was stupid bravado, nothing more." I flipped to the next screenshot and ignored his protest. "Once a girl has enough numbers, you can't really claim her. Wedding photos will feel weird knowing half the guys already tried it." I heard one bridesmaid suck in a breath and curse under it. His father shifted like he wanted to disappear into the wall. His mom straightened, face going tight, defensive and oddly proud. "Men talk disgusting when they're alone, that's nothing new," she said. She looked at her son with a warning glance, then back at me. "You can address that after the honeymoon, not 30 minutes before vows. That's not how you handle issues if you want a long marriage." I smiled at her, but there was nothing warm in it. "This isn't about locker room nonsense anymore, keep listening." I slid to the next set, the ones from my best friend. "This is from last night, during his so-called last night of freedom." I tapped the screen and started reading word for word. "You already wondered what it's like with me, Em. I'd as well try it once. She had lots of fun before, one more name won't change anything." His mother's eyes widened at that, finally cracking the practiced mask. My friend pulled out her own phone and mirrored the texts. "Just in case you think she edited anything," she added quietly. He ran a hand through his hair, looking wild now, cornered. "I was drunk, it was a stupid attempt at humor, nothing happened." He looked around the room for anyone who might nod along. You know how her friends flirt, it's always been that way. The guys were pushing me, it got out of hand. That cute story falls apart at the next part, I answered. I opened the last image, the one that had gutted me most. Of course, I hooked up with someone else that first month. Had to try other options before committing to a girl like her. She can't complain if she ever finds out, look at her record. The room went dead quiet after that, like someone hit mute. My chest hurt, but my voice stayed surprisingly even and clear. So here is what you are in your own words, I said. A man who cheats, lies, and then calls me trash to justify it. And then says I should feel lucky you didn't demand a virgin. He opened his mouth, but I kept going because I needed to. You framed my history as a stain while hiding your own betrayal. You mocked me with your friends and then lectured me about morals. You tried to reshape my wedding outfit so it matched your insults. And you expected me to walk down an aisle grateful. His dad finally spoke up, voice low and strangely tired. Is this true? He asked, looking directly at his son. No anger yet, just this resigned kind of disappointment. My ex shifted his weight and gave a tight, stubborn half shrug. I exaggerated in the chat, but yeah, I messed up. Hearing him call it messing up almost made me laugh again. Step out of the room, his mom said quietly to me. We can talk as a family and then address this together. I shook my head the second the words left her mouth. No, I'm not stepping away so you can spin this without me. I drew in a breath and looked at each of them in turn. I'm not marrying a man who sees me as damaged goods. I'm not binding myself to a future mother-in-law who backs that. I'm not promising forever to someone who gambled on my silence. I would rather walk out in these clothes than enter as his wife. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across his face. Come on, we can work through this, you're reacting huge, he said. You're really going to blow our whole life up over texts. He stepped closer, tone softening in that familiar, manipulative way. Think about everything we planned, you love me, you know you do. I loved who I thought you were, I answered quietly. And I loved who I got to be before you rewrote me. I don't love the man who typed those lines. And I definitely don't love being weighed against your imaginary ideal. That girl in your head deserves your ring more than I do. He reached out like he might grab my hand and anchor me. I put my palm up, stopping him inches from my wrist. This is me not giving you the chance to twist this again. This is me not letting you turn my pain into a punchline. I am done trying to convince you that I'm worthy. I took the ring from my pocket and held it up. For a second, it caught every eye in the room. Then I set it on the nearest table between us. It doesn't belong on me, I said, voice low and final. Give it to someone whose past clears your mysterious bar. His mother gasped softly, like the ring itself felt wounded. That is a very expensive symbol, young lady, she warned. You do not walk away from that because men bragged drunk. She glanced at the bridesmaids, at my friend, at the coordinator. You will regret this when the anger fades. Maybe I will, I admitted, because I don't want to lie here. Maybe I'll miss the version of him I built in my head. Maybe I'll miss the future I sketched in that dress shop. But I know exactly what I'll regret more if I stay. I'll regret teaching myself that this treatment was acceptable. The coordinator hovered in the doorway, eyes wide, hand over her mouth. I turned to her because someone had to hear this clearly. There won't be a ceremony today, I repeated, stronger than before. I'll handle guests as they arrive so you don't have to. Her shoulders dropped a little with relief, like she'd waited for that. My friend stepped to my side without needing a signal. Do you want us with you when you talk to everyone? I nodded, still facing the coordinator, feeling the weight shifting. Yes, I'm not hiding what happened under some vague excuse. If he wanted privacy, he shouldn't have used my life as material. He muttered something under his breath about me loving drama. I glanced back at him one last time, really looking. He looked small now, not in height, just eye and presence, like I had been holding him up in my mind this whole time. It was almost a relief to finally set him down. We walked out together into the hallway outside the main room. Guests were starting to drift in, dressed up, curious and cheerful. My chest tightened when I recognized faces that meant history. People I cared about who had no idea what they almost watched. I realized I'd rather embarrass myself than lie to them. I stepped onto the little platform where we'd planned our first look. Highs, I called out louder than I thought I could. Conversation slowed and a few heads turned toward me. My friends flanked me, phones ready, shoulders squared. I'm going to make a quick announcement before anyone sits down. Words left my mouth smoother than any toast I'd ever given. There will be no wedding today, I said, and voices rippled. You showed up for me, so I'm going to be honest with you. I found out my almost husband betrayed me and insulted me behind my back. He treated my past as dirt while hiding his own. Murmurs spread, some shocked, some angry, some just stunned. I saw a few eyes dart toward him standing in the doorway. I didn't give him a chance to cut in or perform. I'm not asking you to pick sides or stay for details. I just won't let anyone think I walked away for nothing. I stepped down before anyone could swarm me with questions. My legs shook for the first time that day as I moved. My friend wrapped an arm around me once we cleared the crowd. You did it, she whispered, voice rough, eyes bright. Now we just have to get you home in one piece. We walked out of the venue into the open air. Behind us, voices rose, then fell, doors opened and closed. I didn't look back at him, not even once. I focused on the parking lot, the cars, the next step. Leaving felt less dramatic in practice and more like finally exhaling. Back at my place, I dropped onto the couch with a grunt. My phone buzzed nonstop on the coffee table in front of me. His name, his mother, mutual friends, unknown numbers. I flipped it over so the screen faced the table instead. For a moment, silence reclaimed the room. My friend came back from the kitchen with takeout and water. You know the internet is built for stories like yours, she said. I raised an eyebrow, exhausted but a little curious. You're really going to suggest I crowdsource my healing right now? She shrugged and handed me the drink. You always read those posts when it's someone else, she reminded me. You yell at your phone when people stay with men like this. She gave me a knowing look that made my face heat up. Maybe write it down before you start rewriting it in your head. Get your version out first without his edits. So I picked up my phone and opened the app. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for a few seconds. Then I typed the title fast before courage faded. My fiance said brides only wear white when they're pure, and since I'm run through. I paused, then added, I called off the wedding on the day. I started to write and the whole mess came pouring out. The dress shop, his mother, the group chat, the messages to my friend. The way he hid behind jokes and then behind my history. The way I almost married him anyway out of fear and habit. The way I finally chose to walk in jeans instead of lace. And that's how I ended up here typing this to strangers. Not in a white gown, not with a new last name. No aisle, no vows, no first dance posted online. Just me, my unchanged phone number, and a story I survived. Honestly, for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough.